This is days 2 and 3 of hard enduro training with Cody Webb. Nope, sorry, no, this is Ohio after I got back from Arizona with Cody Webb. Okay, we're back on track. This is days 2 and 3 of hard enduro training with Cody Webb. Now, unfortunately, I lost a lot of GoPro video, so I lost the first half of day 1, which is climbing through these hills and valleys of this beautiful scenery. But luckily, I still have a lot of good footage of a lot of gnarly stuff. So here we are, kind of working our way back to the truck from the first half of the day, and I found the first rock on the entire trip that actually helped me. Otherwise, I would have went over my handlebars here. So here we are, just kind of at the end of the first half of the day. At this point, we're taking this easy creek bed back to the trucks so that we can gas up and get ready for the second half of our day. And this part was actually kind of nice. Just a nice, easy ride through a pretty fun and easy, kind of semi-moderately challenging terrain. May not look it here, but there's a few sections here that give you a little heartburn. Alright, so we're wrapping up the creek bed for the first half of the day, and as you can see, it's a little rougher. Disclaimer, I make things probably look more difficult than they should be. So here we are going into the second half. We gas up and we're off. So after gassing up, we there's this little creek right, or whatever you want to call this, creek, dried up river. It was right behind the trucks, and it was pretty gnarly, so we decided as a group just to kind of go up this as far as we can. Now that's Cody in front of me here, and I was able to keep up with him for a full minute of him just kind of running casually. So that pretty much counts for nothing, other than I was able to keep up with him going 10% and me going 100. So now I do have to say, this creek bed got pretty tough. Don't have a lot of terrain like this back in Ohio, so I had a lot of learning to do, not in the context of going over the rocks, but how you go over them, how much you fight them, and how much you kind of go with the flow. Otherwise, they just wear you out tremendously. And that was a lesson I had to learn the hard way during this trip. And there's the end of my run of following Cody. At this point, he kind of went on going his 10%, and I pretty much died. Yeah, I decided to let you get ahead.
Yeah, understandable. I'm gonna read my lines.
Yeah. So during a little break where we're letting the group catch up, I think I discovered Cody's secret for how he does so well during all these events. It's simple leg stretches. I didn't plan on showing a whole lot of video of this going up down this creek bed. It was pretty tough. As you can see here, the rocks vary from small to huge to stuff that just makes me cry a little bit. So I cut a lot of this stuff out, but we were out here for quite a while going up and down this creek. Now at this point, I really had no appetite for drowning my bike or even gambling right there. I couldn't tell how deep it was, so I decided to take my time and take the high road. I was not going to drown my bike again on this trip. This part was kind of cool because it doesn't look it, but when you kind of get in the midst of these rocks, it goes all the way up to your gas tank here. So it does make it fairly challenging and somewhat rewarding getting through there without scraping your knees. And that's Bo in front of me. This is the guy that put on the event. He was kind enough to show me that that's pretty deep. So I decided to take his line and not go for a swim. Alright, so here I didn't realize how close I got to smashing Bo's ankle, so if you're watching this, Bo, sorry about that. I really didn't mean to do that. So we're nearing the end of this segment here. We're about ready to start into day 3, but as we're kind of going through this, I mean, as you can see, this was a long and challenging creek. There's nothing super challenging, like no one obstacle. It was the constant, all hours of just rocks and rocks and more rocks. That was what really made this challenging. Okay, here we are, day 3. Day 3 is our least technical day and probably just more of a, if you want to call it, a joyride on a hard enduro vacation. So however you want to token that. It was still kind of tough, but it was a lot more fun, free-flowing. So we started out on the single track to the desert. We rode this for about 5 miles or so till we got to where you needed to kind of drop into some canyons. And I've never been in the desert riding like this. I've never been in this type of terrain riding, so I was super pumped about riding these kind of single tracks just to kind of get a feel for the flow. And it met all of my expectations. It was just absolutely gorgeous. Now, I left a good bit of the single track in here, just kind of to give you a feel for just this amazing terrain. Those of you who are in Arizona probably see this every day, but as you saw at the beginning of the clip, I see snow and corn, so this is something new for me. We're coming around a turn over here. I wasn't expecting to see deep ruts here because so far throughout the trail everything's pretty shallow, and I kind of got sucked into what I'm going to token the rut of death, because if I was going a little faster I think I would have been in trouble. Okay, so about 100 yards past the rut of death, we kind of pause as a group and wait for all the riders to catch up. And here, Cody pulls up, looks me square in the eye, and asks me if I saw that rut.
Yeah, I found
Unfortunately,
it.
I did see the rut.
It's fast. What? You guys are fast.
So up to this point, this just felt like a really fun and super cool traditional type of enduro. We obviously weren't all running at race speed, so we were actually just enjoying this amazing free-flowing single track. So I normally ride a 250 two-stroke Husky at home, but out here I had a 300 two-stroke, which I could say I started to really learn to love how these 300s kind of lug up hills whenever you cut your momentum a little short. So I think that's something I'll probably be looking to invest into here in the near future, as well as upgrading my bike. Alright, so now we're finally nearing the end of the 5-mile trek, and we're dropping into our first canyon. Now this part of the trip, it wasn't too technical. It was actually kind of fun. It was nice and flowy going down through these canyons. I have no idea how I stalled my bike here, but for some reason I had enough talent to actually pull it off, stalling my bike when I really shouldn't be. And here's another silly thing I shouldn't have struggled with. There's a lot more sand at the bottom of this than I expected, so I got no traction, but once I figured out that I have no traction, I was able to squeak up it. And coming out of the canyon was actually a lot more fun than going down it, just because you had a little more some step ups, and they weren't too hard, but they were just fun enough for me at least. So after we got out of that canyon, we had a nice little single track transfer section. It was nice and flowy, some fun little hills. So all in all, though, this day 3 was it was a nice relaxing day more than anything. There were some fairly challenging things, but I'd say versus 80% of the trip was easy, versus the prior days where 80% of the trip was difficult. Now, as we're dropping into these canyons, it was just a lot of downhill stuff, so the only thing you really had to fear was fear itself, and, oh yeah, and potentially going over handlebars. That was the other thing to fear. Which, luckily, I didn't do at all on this trip, but there were a lot of close calls. This hill was a little tricky because as you kind of come up to it and you have to make this turn has nothing but sand at the bottom. Once you get to the sand, you kind of have to explode to get up it. I almost cleared the hill, but as you can see here, I'm trying to get that velocity I need. I don't quite make it, so luckily I made it high enough up where I could just kind of push my bike up the rest of the way, because honestly I didn't feel like trying that again, so I just wanted to move on and see what was next, which was this next section was actually kind of cool. I've always seen those GoPro videos where people are riding up on the ridges like this, where if you go left or right, you're going for a long slide, which I always thought was a pretty cool terrain to ride in. Now, unfortunately, I missed a lot of GoPro video of day 3 as well, but a lot of that wasn't too crazy intense. Here we are, we're finally starting our long trek back to the truck, dropping back into kind of the sandy main path, where this is actually a ton of fun. We just basically rip through a couple miles of the sandy track here as fast as we can. Now, I've never ridden on sand like this, so it was a little sketchy at first, but since we had a couple miles of this, by the end of this, I was just loving it. It was such a blast flying through this stuff. And it was actually kind of weird to go fast on a hard enduro vacation.
That was fun. Just ripping it for a minute.
I know, you can't ever go as fast as you want.
This next part, not really for the claustrophobic. This was probably our last real obstacle that we had to do on this trip. Basically the last real technical obstacle, I'd say. And it was actually kind of fun. I didn't think I'd get up this as well as I did.
Cody's gonna be popping out right up here somewhere.
Back, we essentially had another couple miles of just some of this fun open terrain single track, which actually was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it because it was a nice little cool down as well. But all in all, this trip was This was amazing. I would do this again in a heartbeat if I could. It wasn't just riding with Cody, it was just the format, and it was everything that we did, everything collectively together. It was just an utter blast. I mean, it's everything you'd want on just if you love dirt biking, you love hard enduro, and just enduro in general. This is everything you could ever wish for. Cody was really essentially the icing on the cake for this trip. So special thanks and shout out to Cody Webb for joining us on this event, Ready to Ride Rentals, and MJS Moto Photos for putting this on and putting up with all of us.